Peace, and welcome to another episode of the Quranic Remedies, where we spend about 15 minutes exploring a page from the Quran together and seeing how we can apply the verses to our lives. And hopefully, with God's permission, it helps us heal our brain, body, mind, and soul. So today we'll be reading from chapter 3, the Family of Imran, from verses 46 to 52. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge to God from the accursed devil. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the Merciful, the Gracious. وَيُكَلِّمُ النَّاسَ فِي الْمَهْدِ وَكَهْلًا وَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And he will speak to the people in the cradle, as well as in middle age, and as one of the righteous. قالت رب أن يكون لي ولد ولم يمسسني بشر قال كذلك الله يخلق ما يشاء إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون. She said, Lord, how can I have a son while no man has touched me? He said, thus God does create whatever he wills. Whenever he decrees a command, then he only says to it, be, then it becomes. وَيُعَلِّمَهُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَالتَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ. And he will teach him the book, the wisdom, the Torah and the gospel. وَرَسُولًا إِلَى بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ أَنِّي قَدْ جِئْتَكُمْ بِآيَةٍ مِّنْ رَبِّكُمْ أني أخلق لكم من الطين كهيئة الطير فأنفخ فيه فيكون طيرا بإذن الله وأبرئ الأكمة والأبرص وأحيي الموت بإذن الله وأنبئكم بما تأكلون وما تدخرون في بيوتكم إن في ذلك لآية لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين. As a messenger to the children of Israel, indeed, I have brought you a sign from your Lord. I can create for you out of clay like the shape of a bird. Then I blow into it, and it will become a bird by the permission of God. And I can cure the blind and the leper, and give life to the dead by the permission of God. I can inform you of what you will eat and what you will store in your houses. Indeed, there is a sign in that for you, if you should be believers. وَمُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيَّ مِنَ التَّوْرَاةِ وَلِأُحِلَّ لَكُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي حُرِّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ وَجِئْتَكُمْ بِآيَةٍ مِّنْ رَبِّكُمْ فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونَ. And confirming what was before me of the Torah, and to make lawful for you some of what has been forbidden to you. And I have brought you a sign from your Lord, so beware of God and obey me. إِنَّ اللَّهَ رَبِّي وَرَبُّكُمْ فَاعْبُدُوهُ هَذَا صِرَاطٌ مُسْتَقِيمٌ. Indeed, God is my Lord and your Lord, so worship him. This is the straight path. فَلَمَّا أَحَسَّ عِيسَى مِنْهُمُ الْكُفْرَ قَالَ مَنْ أَنصَارِي إِلَى اللَّهِ قَالَ الْحَوَارِيُّونَ نَحْنُ أَنصَارُ اللَّهِ آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَاشْهَدْ بِأَنَّا مُسْلِمُونَ. But when Jesus sensed disbelief from them, he said, who are my supporters for God? The disciples said, we are supporters of God. We believe in God and testify that we are submitters. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. God, the Great, said the truth. Now these verses are carrying on from where we left off yesterday in regards to Mary being announced and being told a promise from God, a word from God, that she is going to bear a son. His name is Jesus. He's going to be the Messiah. Now, as you see that God is telling us that he is one of the nearbys, the people who are pious. He has a high ranking with God. And God tells us of one of the miracles, that he will be able to speak from the cradle and in old age. He's going to be somebody who is obviously wise, capable of speaking the truth of God and presenting it to a way for people to understand. This is why Jesus is such an influential character in the world that we live in today, almost 2,000 years after his departure. God shows us again on Mary's ability to believe a promise that is extremely far-fetched and distant at this moment. She didn't say, I can't have a child because no man has touched me. She is believing in the promise, and she's asking, how is this promise going to be fulfilled? This is something that is incredible to understand. When the human being is seeing God's work in front of him, he rather wants to understand the how, but rather than can it happen? Because us as believers, yes, we should, and every believer will tell you that God is capable of all things. But sometimes when you present something to somebody, a lot of people doubt it. It's just because it seems so far-fetched and it feels so distant. Now here, God is making a difference between what he told to John the Baptist, Zechariah, John's dad, and what he's telling Mary, the mother of Jesus. When John was questioning on how can I have a child, God says that over there, he said that God can do whatever he wills. And in that regards, he fixed the wife of Zechariah. But in the case of Mary, here God doesn't say that he does whatever he wills, but rather God creates whatever he wills. So here we obviously know that Jesus is the result of a miraculous birth where there is no father involved. He is the direct creation of God. There is something that's interesting when God is telling us about what he's going to teach Jesus. Now, a lot of people misunderstand or do not comprehend the word al-kitab, or the book within the Quran. They automatically assume that the book means the Quran or the book means another scripture. But in fact, the book is what God has written upon us as humanity, as mankind, and what is going around us. And the wisdom is why God has written what he has written. For example, do not kill your children out of fear of poverty. This is something that God has written on the human. This is something that has been judged to the human, where you shouldn't kill your kids because you're fearing poverty. The wisdom, God gives it to you as well. This is in chapter 17. It's because we will feed them and we will feed you. So you shouldn't be worried about concepts of poverty or you trying to control poverty by doing something that's illegal, going as far as unaliving your children or killing your children or getting abortions or getting things of that nature. Because God is saying that we will provide for both of you. That's the wisdom on why God has written what he has written. And God tells us about Jesus here, that he's going to teach him the book, the wisdom, and then the Torah and the gospel. So notice how the Torah and the gospel is different than what the book and the wisdom is. And the prophets come with the book and the wisdom, and the book is always given to you as something that is singular. A lot of people have a misconception between what the book is and what the wisdom is, and this is just them conflating matters so that they would delude themselves and delude others. It's very clear that the Quran is teaching you both the book and the wisdom. So in the case of our blessed Prophet Muhammad, he was taught the book, the wisdom, and the Quran. And the Quran was confirming the Torah and the gospel. Now, Jesus also provides a miracle for people to realize his own birth on how it is a miracle itself. So Jesus creates something from clay, a bird, and then he blows in it and it becomes alive. This is obviously a miracle by the permission of God. It's not Jesus himself doing this. This is God allowing him to do it. But he's painting to us the ability of what God is capable of doing. So Jesus and Adam have a similar characteristic where they are born outside of what is naturally known, the human world, or what the natural world produces in the way that it produces children. Jesus here obviously is a miraculous birth. Adam himself is a miraculous creation. Jesus himself repeats that, showing to them that this is a matter, or this is similarly to how I was created. But the interesting fact here is God lists us a lot of miracles that Jesus was capable of doing. Helping the sick, reviving the dead, telling people what they're eating and what they're storing. He's creating birds from clay and bringing them to life by God's permission. But yet people still doubted him. People still didn't believe him. And this is something that you as a human, you should also remember quite often. Even when you do not have miracles and you're telling people to believe in God in a certain way, the majority of them are going to deny you no matter what. At that point, you should follow what Jesus does, and he's always reminding you that the true path is to worship your Lord and be aware of him, which he says this. Because he is my Lord and your Lord, so be aware of him. Because this is truly the way that you find peace, and this is the true way for you to find the forgiveness, because we all are full of errors. We are all full of sin. But we do not want to disbelieve in the Lord by doubting what God is showing us. So you don't have miracles and people are denying you, and that might make you a little depressed. It might make you a little sad. And some people, they get a little angry on how do people deny this obvious truth that God has revealed to us? Well, imagine someone came with clear miracles and people denied him. So do not be distraught. Do not be depressed. Do not let yourself come down, because God guides whom he wills and he deludes whom he wills. And if you are a person who's following the clear book, the book tells you your only duty is to tell them, to warn them. And if they wake up and if they understand what you said, it's only benefiting them at the end of the day. And all you had to do was teach them about the love that God has shown you. Now, we then later realize that despite Jesus confirming what the Torah said, we also see that within religions, from curriculum to curriculum, God is removing prohibitions that he put. Because Jesus says that I'm here to make legal some of what has been forbidden upon you. And this is something that we also realize in the Quran, where God is telling us what he forbade on the children of Israel in regards to talon and some fat that they are not allowed to consume of the animal, and certain other animals which is legal for us. But their prohibitions is not because the meat itself is bad for them, but rather because they were so insolent to God. It was a form of punishment because of the way that they were treating the messengers and the prophets when they came. Because God oftenly repeats that the children of Israel, when they did not like what the prophet was telling them or what a prophet was revealing from God, they killed. Some they denied and some they killed. So as a result, some things that were proper for them, which was legal for them, it was taken away from them. As God clearly states later in this chapter, I believe, he says that all the food was legal to the children of Israel, except what Israel himself forbade upon himself. So as a default, all food was legal. There was some prohibitions. Those prohibitions were added because of their own transgressions. And then Jesus came, also a mercy from God, and he removed some of those prohibitions so that you're not on the trouble in the day of judgment, and you get to enjoy from what God has given us from these provisions. But people still denied him, and he brought them a clear sign from God. And he says this word, this sentence that's oftenly repeated when Jesus is speaking. Indeed, God is my Lord and your Lord. So serve him or worship him. That is the straight path. This statement is oftenly attributed many times in the Quran to Jesus, because we understand that how people see Jesus, as they are calling him a Lord, that he is equal to God, or he is the begotten Son of God, which is all blasphemous statements that the mind cannot comprehend or should not comprehend. And they themselves cannot comprehend it because they cannot logically explain it. Idolatry is idolatry any way you see it. But here God is showing us that Jesus himself said the words that, indeed, God is my Lord and your Lord, so serve him and worship him. But yet we find a lot of people, when it comes down to the actual serving of God, they only provide lip service and they want to put other people as lords, whether identifying them as lords or passively taking them as lords, which is the problem, is them not recognizing that they're putting people as lords, but they're treating them as such. But there is an interesting topic here that it's not very explicit, but it's implicit. So it says here, فَلَمَّا أَحَسَّ عِيسَى مِنْهُمُ الْكُفْرِ, when Jesus felt from them the disbelief. And we'll see later when the verses continue that God says that he's raising him to him. So God is raising Jesus to him and purifying him. Because I believe that when Jesus was rescued, because he in his heart was able to understand their disbelief. So as soon as Jesus understood the doubts that they have, that he himself has felt that treachery, that impurity, and where God has given a promise to the mother of Mary that he's going to safeguard Mary and her seed from the devil. As soon as Jesus felt the disbelief, so he felt from the people around him the disbelief, God removed them and purified him so that he would not have to sit in that little tiny lack of purity that he had to endure because of the people around him. And this is something that we need to keep in mind. There are people that we love and there are people that are around us that we really do care for them, because sometimes they are our parents, sometimes our children, our really close friends, but they are not people who are believers. And unfortunately, they can influence you. I can see somebody's perspective on what they're saying. For example, if an atheist comes and says, God does not exist, I can understand his perspective. But to feel his perspective or to have empathy to his perspective, at that point, I'm planting seeds that should not be planted. It does not mean that I accepted the disbelief, but as I was able to recognize his perspective from his own feeling, and it's an impure feeling because you're almost denying God, only thinking about it rather than even accepting it. And unfortunately, when you are facing these situations constantly by these people that you love around you, they start to influence you. And when certain verses are being said, or when certain things are said about God, you yourself might not believe what the person said, but it still comes to mind. And this is the issue with people that have attributed books to God that are not from God. When certain verses are read in the Quran and you realize these narrations that people have said, which are blasphemous, that go against the Quran, when you read those verses, those things come to mind because you are a person that had to share that perspective only to understand what the person said. But this is a form of impurity. If you were never introduced to that topic, or if you were never introduced to that thought in the first place, wouldn't you be a more innocent and a more pure person? Because as we already covered in the last page of chapter 2, God is going to judge you for your thoughts and for your actions and the things that you put outside. I would love for me to be completely pure, where there is no negative thought that is pertaining to my Lord, even if I don't believe in it. But that's truly what happens when we get to heaven. We are going to experience what Jesus experienced, where God purifies us, and allows us to have that ability to not think negatively ever again. That our thoughts are so pure and so innocent, and there is no sinister behind them, and there's no evil behind them, because this is the mercy of our Lord. This is how He first created us, to be people who are pious, who are innocent, because we know the innocence of a child. And we know when an innocence of a child is taken, and we can even watch a child change as his innocence was broken, because it's something that is fundamentally, we can recognize even as kids that something has changed and something is sad that is happening. Because me being oblivious to a certain truth was better for me. But what's better than knowing God, knowing the orders of God, and being oblivious to all evil in the world? And the only time you interact with evil is by saying peace and moving away with it, instead of having to sit and actually engage with it and making yourself dirty. Because unfortunately, anytime that you have to deal with an evil person, or you do have to deal with evil entities and evil ideas, you end up fighting with the pigs in the dirt. And then you yourself can find yourself becoming dirty. But this is a spiritual dirt. And God tells us that there are ways that you get purified here in the world. Some of it is by spending the money that God has given you. God calls that zakat, where it does do a form of purification for you. And then there is the form of purifying your soul by disconnecting from the people that you have to disconnect. And God can heal you just like a wound on your skin. But some wounds on the skin, despite them healing, they leave a scar. And I believe what Jesus felt here is that He felt a scar from the people around Him, because He was addressing His disciples. These are the people that was closest to Him. And He asked them, when He sensed from them the disbelief, where they were still doubting Jesus, and we could see that at the end of chapter 5, where like, okay, you're kind of leaving, but we're still not sure if you're actually telling us truth after everything that Jesus has done. And me, if I was in Jesus' position, I would take that as my friend backstabbing me, as if I'm lying to him. But of course, Jesus is on a different level, and the way that He approaches matters is much different than we would, because He's obviously a messenger of God, but we learn from His example. So the way that Jesus wanted the way that Jesus dealt with their disbelief, or what He sensed of this disbelief, is He asked them very simply, who are my supporters to God? Like, you're not supporting me. I want you to support God. Who are these victorious supporters? Who are you? Who are the people who are going to follow me in what I have truly been preaching, which is my Lord and your Lord is one. The God is my Lord and your Lord. So serve Him. And that is the straight path. And here He did catch them, where they are going to stand for a word that they said on the day of judgment. They answered that they are submitters, and they are the supporters of God. Now, there are stories which we're going to later find out in the Quran, where it seems, and it's also talked about in the gospel, that some of the disciples maybe have turned on Jesus. And it does kind of express that in some verses later on. But they've witnessed on themselves that they testified that they were submitters, that they were following the messenger. But we'll see how that turns out. And on the day of judgment, the truth will be revealed. But I implore you today to learn from what Jesus has endured, and the way to handle the disbelief. And for you to carry on with whatever you're doing in regards to calling towards God, because of however much negativity you're going to get, at the end of the day, it's all going to turn to positivity. And the people who are going to be throwing that negativity are going to be facing it, one action for one action. And that positivity that you are spreading, it's going to be multiplied tenfold. And that's the best type of trade that you can have with God in regards to the day of judgment. So you don't need to worry. You need to keep pushing forward. With that said, I truly hope you guys are enjoying these. Peace be upon you, and all praise to our Lord, the Lord of the worlds.